No. This is more comfortable here.
Yeah, for Ida. Yep.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yep, they approved it. Let me write this down. So,
And we need to deposit something in there within 30 days.
you're probably just got to put a buck in it. Or
Okay.
whatever the
I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, December 5th meeting of the Danville City Council. Madam Clerk, roll call to establish a quorum.
Mayor Ricky Williams Jr.,
Present.
Alderman Ed Butler,
Present.
Heidi Wilson, Carolyn Wands,
Present.
James Bouchard,
Present.
Mike O'Kane,
Here.
Bob Iverson,
Present.
Mike Poor,
Present.
Rick Streebing, Sherry Pickering,
Here.
Eve Ludwig,
Present.
Tricia Teague, Robert Williams,
Present.
Darren York, John Cooper,
Here.
11 present.
11 present. We do have a quorum. At this time, we will have the invocation led by the Reverend Macy Ruppel, pastor of the First Presbyterian Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Butler. Please rise.
Hi, everyone. Please pray with me. Loving God, who is with us at our beginning and our ending, be with us now. Help us to find you in the chaos of our lives. Let your light shine in our darkness so that we may be guided to walk in your ways all the days of our life. You know we are often filled with fear and foreboding. Give us courage and deepen our trust. You are a rock which nothing can shatter. On you we can place the whole weight of our lives. We move forward as a body called to serve and love your people. You've given our wonderful city for us to care for and to grow. Help us make the decisions and the moves that are best for all of your people. Help us cross any boundary that divides us and come to this table in love for each other and the people represented by us. In all we do tonight and within this body of people, help us be reflective of your love for the world. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Just want to say, first of all, welcome to the community. This is actually the first time seeing you.
Yes.
I apologize. I didn't expect such a young pastor.
I get it a lot, don't worry.
If you want to just introduce yourself and
Yes.
just tell us about what's going on at the church, we'd be happy to hear.
Absolutely. Hey, everyone, I'm Macy Ruppel. I grew up in South Carolina, so I say y'all kind of aggressively. My congregation has learned to love it about me. I am at First Presbyterian Church. I've been there since August, mid-August, and we are in the peak of Christmas season now. We're in Advent, and it has been a really wonderful journey to be on with them. I hope to be on it for a long time. Yeah, we have some really incredible stuff happening at our church. We are giving out our Glad Tidings gift cards this coming weekend. That is to people in our community who need a little extra help for the holiday season. They get a gift card and they can go purchase groceries with that and kind of bring a little joy to their family. I think that's our biggest thing right now. The deacons were meeting tonight and they are lovingly stressed getting all of that put together. But yeah, we're doing incredible stuff and I would love to have y'all there. Come say hey, we would love to see you.
When are your hours of worship?
Yes, so we worship on Sunday mornings at 9:45. We're a strict hour people. If you walk out at an hour, that is all right. And then our office is open 9 to 1 each weekday. So y'all are welcome to pop in and say hey.
And for those of you who all don't know, First Presbyterian houses a number of important ministries and services to our community. So we really appreciate all of the different entities that you all partner with to provide.
Absolutely. Yeah, those missions are near and dear to our hearts. We really love having them within our building. Sunday, we're actually doing a walkthrough so that our congregation can see everyone. We're currently interviewing with our 7th tenant to have someone new come in and housed in our building, and that's been a real gift to be able to share that space.
The dwelling place in particular, I know
Yes.
has been of a help to a lot of people in their partnership with the houses to the north as well. I know is
Yes.
very much appreciated by the community. So,
Absolutely. It's been a gift to meet and be with all of them as well.
for those of you who don't know, they also house the first doctor's office, the first library in the Danville community a couple of hundred years ago as well. So
Yeah.
they have a long history of giving.
Yes, yeah.
Your Honor, you've hit it perfectly. First Presbyterian is the oldest church in Danville, back to Abraham Lincoln days, and now we have the youngest minister in Danville. I think it's going to be a perfect match. He can get us moving.
It's a lot of fun. I'm getting used to the old building and got to move a bat at one point a few weeks ago. It's been fun. It's a new adventure.
Well, thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
You have before you the minutes of the November 21st, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved. Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate on the minutes? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. You do have before you the agenda. Unfortunately, I will request that we remove item 6B1. Unfortunately, Mr. Poulos has withdrawn himself for consideration for personal reasons. Is there a motion to?
Mayor, I'd like to make one further amendment. Without objection, I'd like to move 13B1, the DCEO RISE grant presentation, up to number 4 under 6D1 with the other presentations.
Absolutely.
They have a 3 to 4 hour drive, so they'd like to get out of here.
Very good. Absolutely, Chairman. If there's, it's been moved by Chairman Poor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of approving the amendment as agendaed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Thank you very much. I do not have any proclamations or board or committee or personnel appointments this evening. Are there any reports of boards, agencies, or commissions? Seeing none, at this time, we have several presentations before us. First, we have with us from Lauterbach and Amen, our independent actuarial analysis of pension funds, and I'll turn that over to our treasurer and to our guest speaker this evening. Yes, sir.
All right, good evening. I'm Bob Reitz with Lauterbach and Amen. This is my third or fourth time coming to present in front of you folks, so it's happy to be back. Thank you for the invitation. You do have a separate handout here that will go through the results of this year's actuarial evaluation reports. Starting in the first page, we just look at the change in fair value of assets. As we know, assets are a very important part of valuing pension funding. When you look at how a pension can be funded, it's only one of three ways. One is by employee contributions, one is by employer or municipal contributions, the other is with expected return on assets. So how well the fund does in the market is definitely important to how the fund is going to operate overall. So I'm going to we have all the results shown here, both the fire fund, the police fund, and then the total. I'm going to primarily talk about the total results, throwing in a little bit of extra color sometimes with police and fire, where there's a definite difference between the two. Combined last year, so this would be from the period of 5/1/22 through April 30th of 23 is the measurement period we're talking about here. You started at $48.5 million. You had $10.8 million of employer and municipal contributions coming to the fund, another $1 million of employee contributions. Your return on investments for the year is $872,000, paying out benefit payments of $9.1 million, another $110,000 of administrative expenses. So net combined, the funds grew $3.5 million. If you look at the box on the right-hand side there, we talk about the expected return, or what was actually realized through the year. The fire fund returned 2.34%. Police a little bit less than that, 1.45%. We have an assumption place of 6.75%. So both funds performed a little bit less than what we had expected to do, and that's normal. Now, if you recall the conversations we've had about the consolidation of the police and fire pension funds, the individual pension boards here no longer have any control of those assets. That's all done at the state level with these consolidated funds. And really, with the way the last year has been, it's really been up and down month by month. So if we would have measured this fund on a calendar year basis, you would have been down 15%. If we measured it as of April 30th, or August 30th, excuse me, you'd been up 9%. So it's really been pretty volatile within the last couple of years. But we do have in place what we call the actuarial value of assets that kind of helps us with regards to short-term volatility when we smooth investment gains or losses over a 5-year period, and we don't have to reflect them all immediately. So that's a part of the funding mechanism we have in place to prevent some volatility and keep these contributions a little bit more level and predictable. Going to the next page, we talk about the recommended contribution. Last year, fire was at 4.93 million. Up to 5.23 million, about a $300,000 increase there. This year, police up to 4.7 million. So combined, both funds were up, you see in the box here, in the box and right there, 425,000. We would normally expect that. So that's really not outside of the norm. A little bit with those asset returns help, hurt the plan a little bit, but we'll go through a more detailed reconciliation of where that increase in contribution comes from. You look at your unfunded liability, the fourth line item there, prior year, 110.9 million, increased to 112.7 million, so increased by about $1.8 million. But the important thing to look at is your funded percentage. On an AVA basis, so the second to last line, 24.9% for fire, increased from 23.05 last year, so up 185 basis points. Similar for police, up 193 basis points. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it's pretty significant when you can jump that much with regards to how poorly the assets performed as well. So, and really a large portion of that is due to the contributions that the city made in the year, and we'll go over that in a moment as well. Going to the next page, this is a reconciliation of how the contribution changed. The first line item would be expected changes. So each year we have a whole set of assumptions in place, and we also amortize the unfunded liability over a certain method where we expect the contribution to go up about 3.25%. The expected increase in liability also includes an increase due to the normal cost or the accrual of benefits by all the active members, and it's also interest that's getting earned on the existing liability, and we do take out the benefits that are paid out through to your current retirees and disabled members and surviving spouses. Second line item is the rest below that is demographic or actual financial experience. Salary increases for fire a little bit higher than expected, so increasing your contribution by about 75,000. Police contributions or salaries a little bit lower than expected, decreases your contribution by about 8,000, so net about a $67,000 increase due to salaries. Actual experience would be your true demographic changes through the year. So for example, fire increased by 129,000. Fire had 8 new hires, 5 new retirees. Usually a retiree increases your liability pretty significantly. In addition, a new disabled member increases your liability pretty significantly. Some terminations, and then you had a retiree pass away with a surviving spouse. All that netting out, all that activity increases the contribution about 129,000. Police, not quite as much as activity. You had 2 retirements, a lot of terminations that were either going to receive a refund of the contributions or just going to be a vested member waiting to a future point in time to receive their benefits. 8 new hires, and you had 4 members pass away, only with 2 surviving spouses. So liability typically would have gone down because of those members that passed away. That's why you don't see that big of an increase overall for the actual experience for that police plan. Plan changes, a small change that with regards to how an interpretation from the Department of Insurance says we should calculate Tier 2 disabled disability COLA benefits. I know that's a lot of words right there, but really it doesn't affect your plans at all. You don't have any Tier 2 disabled members, but if you did, you have some actives that are accruing future disability benefits. What the Department of Insurance said, what you're going to get as far as COLAs after that might be a little less than what we previously were valuing, so we see a small decrease there. Asset return, less than expected. As we talked about before, your returns were less than the 6.75%. So even with that asset smoothing, you still have a $21,000 increase for the fire fund, $33,000 increase for the police fund. And then the last item, the most significant item here, contributions were greater than expected. So on the first page, when we looked at the fire recommended contribution from a year ago, it was $4.93 million. You actually put in $5.81 million, so about $880,000 more than what was expected. You can see here that decreases your future contribution $67,000, and that would be in perpetuity. So that should affect each and every year your contribution is going to be down because of that excess contribution that was made. Similar for police, about $461,000 of additional contributions went in above our recommendation. So combined, you put in $1.3 million more than what you had to, or what we recommended you to do. So that's a pretty significant thing. In addition, it offset some of those that poor asset experience. But that's the reason why I said before, when you looked at your funded percentage, although they went up a little bit, it's still pretty significant with just those percentages. So it's good to see. Good to see that this council and the city is taking responsibility and getting these plans funded up and above than what's required.
If I've done my math correctly, then we have 17 years until the state says we have to be at least 90% funded. Mm-hmm. That means by making additional payments now that we'll have saved ourselves a minimum of $2 million in additional future payments.
Easily, yeah, yeah. And there's another important number I'm gonna talk about here in a few minutes that really helps for the financial statements. We'll talk about that in a few minutes as well with those additional contributions. The next page, we just break the contribution down into two different components, one being the normal cost. The normal cost is your accrual benefits by all your actives. So you see for the fire fund, it's about $576,000, police about $607,000, for a total of $1.18 million. The amortization of your unfunded liability, that's where all these contributions are coming from, right? So as we're paying off that amortization after that 17-year period or 18-year period ends, if you follow the recommended, we would expect this line item to go to zero. So at that point in time, when you get 100% funded, you could expect your contributions for fire to be about $575,000. You could expect your police overall total contribution to be about $607,000. So that's the ultimate goal, right? To get these funds up to that funding level. So that's that unfunded liability, chipping away at that, putting excess contributions in, is really going to help us get to that schedule at a faster point in time than over the next 17, 18 years. Okay. Jumping forward a few pages, there's some demographic information here that I already spoke of, so we don't have to spend any time going through it in detail. There's an age service distribution chart for fire. I'm going to take a quick look at these two charts. I apologize for the numbers being pretty small, but easiest way to read this is if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a number there that has a 20, then with a bar and 28. That's your active members separating your tier 1s versus tier 2s. So your tier 1s obviously have were hired prior to 2011, more likely closer to retirement age, and also they have a slightly higher level of benefits that they're going to receive. You also see in the lower right-hand corner of the chart, there's a box, a shaded gray area there. Anybody inside that box is eligible to retire today. They've already met the eligibility requirements to start drawing a pension today. So it looks like for fire here, you have about 8 members that can start drawing their pension today. You have another 10 members that are about 5 years away, or within 5 years away, and one more member that's about 1 year away, okay? And I'll tell you why we're going over this in a second, but looking at police real quick, again, the bottom right-hand corner, 21 active tier 1s, 42 active tier 2, so a much younger population, or a little bit of shift in the demographics there to a less experienced population. Only have 3 members that are currently eligible to retire today, about 7 that are within 5 years, and another 10 or so that are within 10 years to retire. The reason why we want to take a look at these employee members that could retire is on the next page, where we talk about expected benefit payments. So now we're trying to project the cash flows, what the cash flows are going to look like for the fund for the next 5 to 10 years. Right now, you're paying just over $9 million in benefits. So in 5 years, in addition to all those members that are currently eligible and may retire in the next 5 years, we expect it to go up to about $10.7 million. And then within 10 years, including all those members, we expect it to go about $12.1 million. So those percentages go up pretty quickly to 18, 20, 35% over the next 10 years. And I don't tell you all that to scare you. This is more or less, as you fund your plan, you stick with the contributions that you've been making. That's going to cover all those future benefit payments. But it does outline how those benefit payments are going to continue to increase. We do take attrition into account as well. But with all those members currently in that group, we can see those numbers start to go up pretty substantially. Okay. I'm going to skip back to a couple more pages. There's a page called Page 14, lower left-hand corner. I apologize, it's pretty faint there, but it's titled Changes in Net Pension Liability for Fire. Okay, so this is, we're switching gears here for plan funding to financial statement reporting, which would go onto your CAFR, your city financials. Right now in the bottom right-hand corner, you're reporting a net liability of $58.5 million. So that would be what we call your balance sheet liability for the pension fund. This is important to look at when you're talking about your rating agencies and all those types of debt that's outstanding for the city. That's one of the numbers they look at. Okay, and what I wanted to point out to you on the next slide for police. Again, bottom right-hand corner, $54.3 million. But if you look at a line item there, about 5th item down, says change in assumptions. And we show a decrease of liability of $5.6 million. That's because you made those extra contributions. Okay? So your discount rate that we use to calculate our liability changed from 6.2% to 6.75%. By doing so, by making that change, by making those contributions and expecting that same level to go forward, we're able to take $5.6 million of liability off the balance sheet. So that's a pretty significant amount when you're looking at the financial statements, also looking at debt covenants and rating agency activity, all those sorts of things. So now this is only $400,000 more than what we recommended to put in as a $5.6 million impact to your financial statements. So pretty important number there. Okay. And then the last 2 pages, I'm going to skip back 2 more. It's just a graph, GASB solvency chart. Really all these charts show is that if you continue to make the contributions as you've been doing, the plan would be expected to remain fully solvent and have all enough money to be able to pay all future retirees and all the benefits that they are due in the future. So again, another good thing to see there, that even though the funding percentage is low today, putting the right steps into place to fund the plan over that long period of time, you're still going to have enough money to pay all your retirees. And that's the conclusion of my report. Open up for any questions or comments.
Alderman, do you have any? Yes, Alderman Williams.
Yeah, how long will it take for us to resolve that?
So right now, when we're amortizing your unfunded liability, we're doing it over an 18-year period. And each year that you put in excess contributions can shorten that period. We're expecting at some point in time, we're going to have some positive asset returns that will help that period out as well, or lessen the amount that you have to put in. But right now, the metric is 28 or 18 years, or right around the year 2040 would be our goal.
Thank you.
But if we continue, as long as we don't have any severe market issues, and during that time,
Right.
if we continue to make additional payments, then we'll continue to pay it off faster.
Right, and then you continue, because what will happen is, as you pay it off faster, you'll see that we saw a decrease in the contribution that we would have expected. Don't follow that. Follow whatever you have budgeted, follow to continue to pay the higher level, even if you can afford to do so, even if it's in excess of the contribution we tell you to put in, because it will, again, pay it off faster, if you're able to. I know money's tight.
Alderman Cooper.
Okay, this is based on a year. How many months was a casino and cannabis funds going into this? Wasn't all 12 months of it, was it?
Well, casino didn't start until after this fiscal year, so 0. And the cannabis would have gone into this entire
So
year.
next year, he's going to change quite a bit then.
They should.
How many communities do you do? Or
We work on approximately 350 police and fire pension funds.
where do we fall in with all these?
As a funding percentage, you're probably in the bottom quartile. The median for the police and fire funds is right around 60% funded. So you're a little bit less than that. But again, the better message is you're taking action now to improve that. And you're not just kicking the can down the road or anything like that, still putting in the statutory minimum and just letting those things kind of, the statutory minimum, although the state tells you that's all you have to do, it's still not a good funding method. Right. I mean, we'd still prefer you to put in towards 100% of paying all your benefits versus just 90% of your benefits. So again, I said, you went up about 185 to 200 basis points per fund. You continue to do that over the year, that's going to start compounding. So you put in excess contributions again and again and again, it's going to go up 200 basis, 300, 400, and it's going to get you again up to that 100% metric in 20 years.
What does the state require? Isn't it 40% or
90%? 90% by 2040.
Where do I get the 40%? Is there a 40 or 20% you have to be?
No, it's probably 2040 is what you're thinking of. By 2040, that's what the statute states you have to be at 90% by, is by 2040. That might be where you got the 40 from.
Okay. I'm done.
Vice Mayor Teague.
So first of all, my mic on? Because I don't think this is on. And this one is in order.
I don't hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear? Sorry, Vice.
So the increase in contribution, the source of that is a combination of cannabis dollars and the additional that's on our monthly bill. Is that accurate?
What in
The public safety pension fee.
Yes.
Yes.
That's not necessarily the increase. The public safety pension fee has always gone to the pensions. The city's doing additional general fund contributions. The cannabis money, every dime since its inception has gone to pensions. And then in the current year's budget, 80% of all casino revenue is budgeted to go to pensions.
And so, in the budget that we're about to consider, how much are we planning to increase?
Increase our contributions.
Yes.
I don't have that number on top of my head, but I can run that for you.
But it will be bigger than what we've done previously if we're planning to put 80% of the.
It'll be
casino.
bigger than the actuarial report in front of you. It's not bigger than the current budget year. Next budget year is not bigger because we adjusted for casino revenues from last year to this year, but definitely bigger than end of fiscal year 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I was just doing some quick math. That means that we improved our percentage funded from fire by 1.85%, so just shy of 2, and police by 1.93%. So that means compared to 5 years ago, our fire pensions are 9.25% better funded, and our police pensions are 6.33% better funded. So thank you all for staying the course. It's making a difference, and if we continue to hold, to stand strong on making these kind of contributions, then our grandkids, nieces and nephews, et cetera, won't be saddled with the same liability that our grandparents saddled us with. So let's stay the course and continue to make progress for our community. Also, we'll at that point be sure that our police and firefighter pensions, those who put their lives on the line for us, are well taken care of as well. So as importantly. Thank you, sir.
Great.
Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
very
Appreciate
much.
it.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to accept and place on file the independent actuarial analysis of pension funds.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Madam Clerk, do we need a roll call or a?
Voice vote.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Up next, we have with us, I'll turn it over to our comptroller for just a quick comment or two, but we have then with us Ashley Tamala from Hub International to explain our wage study to us. Just so you will know, unfortunately, we're having some technology challenges. If you do have a question, I will pass this to you so that you can ask her to be sure that she hears you well. Oh, leave it here for now. Okay, thanks, Agnew. And then when it's time, if someone has a question, I should pass it to them, correct? Okay.
Ashley, are you able to hear us?
I can, yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. If I share my screen, first maybe let me introduce myself so I can see everybody here fully. So I'm Ashley Tamala with Hub International, and I'm excited to talk with everybody tonight about the compensation study that we completed for the city of Danville. If you're not familiar with Hub International, we are headquartered in Chicago, and we're the largest privately held insurance broker in the world. Hub has about 530 offices and 17,000 employees across North America. So our focus is really on helping clients protect what matters most to them, whether that's from an individual standpoint or a business standpoint. And I lead our compensation consulting team here at Hub. I've been in this space for 13 years now. My background is in organizational psychology, and I'm a certified compensation professional. Over the course of my time in this space, we have worked with a lot of organizations and a lot of city municipalities on projects similar to the study that we worked with Danville on. I'll walk through the study and then answer questions as we go along. So if I share my screen, does that show up for everybody?
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. So the scope of the project that we focused on encompassed 105 jobs across 260 employees. So there were 4 key outcomes that we were working towards with this study. The first was to really formalize a compensation philosophy for the city of Danville. So when you think about payout compensation philosophy. Essentially, that is the strategy for compensating employees moving forward. So that was the first key outcome of the project. The second key outcome that we worked towards was developing a base pay program that is not only market competitive, but also something that is internally equitable, easy to administer, and keep up to date. The next area that we focused on was aligning current employee compensation with the updated market-based pay structure. So we completed financial modeling to understand how current employee compensation compares to market and where there are areas of opportunity. And then the final outcome was to wrap everything together in a compensation administration guide that provides a nice deliverable for the team that'll be administering the programs moving forward, and it also provides guidance on not only making compensation decisions for new hires and current employees, but also how to keep the compensation program up to date. We worked through a number of project phases to accomplish those goals. First, we started out by completing background data collection and review. So the purpose of this phase was to really develop an understanding of the organization. So you can see a number of items listed here that we collected and reviewed. Some of the things included organizational charts, reporting relationships, and job descriptions. When we did look at the job descriptions, I do think it's important to note that those were reviewed and updated by department heads prior to the compensation study. We wanted to make sure that we had up-to-date job information to work from. Other items that we received included list of desired compensation survey participants, and then department and division head feedback on compensation philosophy. So a couple of high-level items to note from the department feedback that we received was there was a desire to really have compensation decisions that are merit-based, so making compensation adjustments based on employee performance. Other areas that we heard and saw themes and trends around regarding the division and department head feedback included making sure that there was an approach in place that would keep the city in alignment with market over time. So once we completed the background data collection and review, our team facilitated a project planning meeting and compensation philosophy discussion with the project team members at Danville. So the first part of that conversation, we really focused on the project approach, making sure we were all in alignment on goals, phases, logistics, and timelines. And then we spent the second part of that conversation really focusing on the compensation philosophy moving forward. So again, how is the organization going to pay its employees? What is the strategy for doing so? We did develop a written compensation philosophy statement as an outcome of this project phase. Some of the items that were noted in the compensation philosophy include making sure that the organization is competitive and providing equitable compensation, having a market-based pay structure in place, and making sure that jobs are assigned to that structure based on current survey data. Also, we talked about making sure that new hires are placed in their pay range based on what they bring to the organization in terms of experience, skills, and education. And then we also talked about moving employees through their jobs pay range based on the annual budget. So we did provide all of that in writing. It's a nice one-page document articulating the compensation strategy that was discussed. And then from there, that really provided direction for the remaining project phases. So when we moved forward based off of that strategy, the next step in the compensation study was to complete a compensation survey of city municipalities. So our project team worked with the Danville project team to identify 80% of the organization's jobs for inclusion in the compensation study. You might be asking yourself, well, why didn't you include all jobs in the organization? One thing that we have to balance when we are collecting data by having other cities submit their information is what is their likelihood to participate? If we're sending a survey that has over 100 jobs, sometimes they can find that challenging to be able to respond to. So we wanted to make sure that we were going to get data where organizations would participate, and also the threshold for doing a compensation study and benchmarking is 75% of the organization's jobs. So we did hit that benchmark, or that threshold, I should say, by including 80% of the jobs. So 84 out of that 105 total. Once the jobs were identified for inclusion in the survey, we developed the communication pieces that would be going out with the survey to those desired city municipality participants. We also developed the data collection file, which is what our team utilized to gather and collect data from the other cities of interest. When we put that data collection file together, that included Danville's classification titles for all 84 jobs, the department that the job was in. It also included a classification summary from your position descriptions. So we wanted to make sure that we were providing those other cities with job-based information, so that way they could go through a job matching process and identify which position in their organization aligned best with the role at Danville, so they could submit their data accordingly. So I do think it's very important to note that the data collection was based on job description content, your job summaries, as well as the minimum education and experience requirements that are listed in your job description. So all of that was provided in the data collection tool that we sent out to other cities. So when we reached out for participation, that time frame was July 24th through August 11th is when the data collection took place. We asked cities to submit their data on the items listed here. So again, taking the survey job summary, the job title, the department, and the minimum qualifications information, we ask participants to review all of that information, identify the best matching job in their organization. There should be at least a 75% job match, so there's good comparability. So once that job was identified in their organization, they submitted the classification title in their organization, whether the job was exempt or non-exempt, their pay range minimum and maximum, how many employees are in the classification, and also the employee-based pay average for each of those 84 jobs. So that is the type of data that we collected, and we gathered that information from the city municipalities that are listed here. The city of Danville identified 3 key organizations of interest, so Champaign, Urbana, and Vermilion County. And then from there, as we were preparing to launch this survey, our team also completed additional research around what other municipalities would be comparable. So we completed research to identify other potential organizations that would be good comparisons. So we looked at organizations within a roughly 100-mile radius. The average distance that we looked at was 88 miles from Danville, and then also looked at cities with comparable populations. So once we had that list identified, we reached out to all organizations to participate, and the list that you see here, the 11 organizations, those are who we received data from. So once we had all of the data from each of these entities, our team took that data, we reviewed it, we cleaned it, we reached out with any questions, and then for each of those 84 surveyed jobs, we developed a target rate, which was the median of the pay range midpoint. So that is what we focused on as the target rate when we moved forward in the next steps. Mayor, would you like me to pause and take questions there, or keep going and then take questions at the end?
Would you all rather ask questions now or at the end?
I know it was a lot of information, so I just want to do whatever is most helpful.
It appears at the end, I think. Please proceed.
Okay. Excellent. So once we had all of that data, and we had the target rate identified for each job. Then the next step in the process was to develop a base pay structure. So the purpose of a base pay structure is to develop a framework to organize all of that survey data into a usable manner. So in addition to making the data organized and usable, the pay structure is also very important because it provides a framework for making consistent compensation decisions for current employees as well as new hires. So to develop the pay structure, we first started by building off of the pay grade minimum for pay grade 1, which was $15 an hour. So that is what we set the minimum of pay grade 1 at. From there, we developed the pay grade maximum for pay grade 1 by adding 50% to the minimum. So you can see there on the far column, pay range spread is 50%. That's what that means. So the difference, if you take minimum, add 50% to that number, that's how you get your maximum. So from there, we identified the middle of that range to get the midpoint. And then very simply, in an objective manner, we built pay grade 2 by tacking on 10% to each of the pay grade 1 numbers. We used pay grade 2, added on 10% of those numbers to develop pay grade 3's range and so on. So this is a best practice approach. It's a very objective approach where we're utilizing consistent pay grade increments and consistent pay range spreads. The next step in the process was to then get all of the jobs assigned to the pay structure. So what we did was we took each of the survey jobs and the job's target rate, and then we did a midpoint target rate comparison. So very simply, we said, okay, for example, if a job has a target rate of $47,000, what midpoint is that target rate closest to? And so you can see here on the screen, that would be the midpoint of pay grade 3 at $47,190. So we went through a very objective process to get all of the survey jobs assigned to the pay structure, utilizing that methodology that I just described. The remaining jobs that were not surveyed were slotted in the pay structure based on how they compared to positions that were surveyed. So again, that's following a best practice approach, utilizing job assignment and job slotting. So for example, I think one that might be helpful to kind of demonstrate or walk through is we surveyed laborer 1 and laborer 2 and found that laborer 1 is in pay grade 5, laborer 2 is in pay grade 6, and then we slotted the lead laborer in pay grade 7 based on how it compared to surveyed jobs. So just wanted to provide that example to give you a little bit more of a concrete understanding of what that process looked like. And then from there, after we had the pay structure in place, all of the jobs assigned to the pay structure, we went through financial modeling to understand how does current employee compensation compare to these updated market-based ranges that we developed. So high-level findings are here on the screen. You can see that a majority of employees, almost 60%, are within their pay range. 41% are under their pay range minimum, and you'll see the total cost here. If the city were to get those employees up to their pay range minimum, the total on that is $652,000. 0 employees were over their pay range maximum. One of the additional calculations that we did complete was looking at how far current employee compensation has progressed through their range. So not only did we look at are employees under their minimum or are they over their maximum, we also looked to see if employees are within their pay range, where are they at relative to that pay range minimum and maximum, and that is known as pay range penetration. So if you're at 0%, you're at the minimum of your range. If you're at 100%, you're at the maximum of your pay range. If you're at 50%, you're right in the middle of your range. Overall, as a whole, the organization's Pay range penetration is 11%. So you can see that there's area of opportunity there to align with market. And, that is one of the goals that we had talked about with the project team, is really looking at an initial goal of getting employees to their minimum. And then the final step in the process was to really wrap all of this together into a final deliverable for your team to administer the program moving forward. So the compensation administration guide that we've developed includes the compensation philosophy information that I reviewed, a description of how the program was developed, how the pay structure was built. There's guidance in there on making compensation decisions for new hires, current employees, and then also guidance around keeping the compensation program up to date by looking at the structure on an annual basis, and then striving to complete benchmarking in a more comprehensive study like this approximately every 5 years as a goal. So that is a high-level summary of this study. There was a lot of work and time and energy that went into it on both sides. So I'm happy to take questions, flip back to any sections of the report if needed, and dig in.
Alderman, what questions do you have for Agnell? So then Vice Mayor.
I don't have that many. When you do these things, do you consider the insurance they pay and all that?
So that is a great question. With the compensation study, there's a couple of different kinds of studies that we can do. One is a compensation study like what we've done here. With our benefits and retirement experts at Hub, we've also done total compensation studies where we do pull in all of those other elements of compensation, such as paid time off, employee benefits, retirement contributions. So we did not specifically benchmark those other items, but where they did come into the conversation was around that compensation philosophy and really talking through, based on where the organization, what you're providing for those other elements of compensation, does that warrant targeting in a different place relative to market? So that's where that conversation came into play.
So when you compare us to other cities, we don't know how much they're paying in insurance, employee pays for insurance or anything like that, do we?
No, we don't.
For this particular study, it does not include insurance, correct?
Okay, and is vacation time, is that, you briefly said something about it, but I mean, is that comparable to other cities?
The focus of this project was on looking at base pay for the organization.
Pay only with nothing, no benefits or anything else included?
Correct.
Okay, your turn.
Well, I think one of the problems with including benefits is, they vary by person. So Vice Chairman Pickering and I may have the same job, but if I have a family, then I'm going to get almost $30,000 of insurance compensation, and she doesn't. She's a single person. She's only going to get $8,000 in compensation. So you can't really say, it's tough to base pay on that because it varies from person to person and their family situation, their familial and relational status. Vice Mayor.
I have a long list of questions. So one of the questions that I have is, when we were doing our comparisons and we submitted job descriptions, et cetera, to the other cities, where does longevity or years of experience in a position come into play with what's in the plan, the outcome?
So with the job matching that was done, it was based on what's required of the position. Longevity can come into play when looking at the different financial modeling aspects. If there is a desire to have compensation, if you're desiring to be at market within a certain time frame of longevity, that is modeling that can be completed. The focus was on what is the job content, so that was focused on in the survey. The financial modeling was completed at the employee level.
So then in the compensation administration guide, does that take longevity into play, into play? Because I'm thinking, for example, you have a person who might be just out of college, maybe well educated, but they're starting level at a position versus a person who has many years of experience and may have been in a position for 15 to 20 years. When we look at our compensation guide, are we saying, does a guide, and I haven't seen the guide, I've seen this, but I haven't seen the guide. Does the guide say, for example, when a person has been in a position or been with the city for 15 plus years, they shouldn't be at the midpoint. They should probably be at a higher end of the range versus someone who's entry level and still needs room to grow in their position and grow in their compensation should probably be at the lower end of the range. I mean, does a guide take that into consideration?
Those are items that we have discussed in the guide in terms of exactly what your point is around hiring rates. What is the employee, the new hire bring to the organization, and individuals are compared against what their qualifications are relative to the job description requirements. And then if they are above and beyond those requirements, then yes, they should be placed higher in the pay range for their starting compensation. The guide does not specifically call out a set number of years to be at midpoint. Based on feedback from department and division heads and project conversations, I believe there's a desire to move towards a merit-based approach. Mayor, I don't know if that's anything that you want to add to.
I mean, I think at some point we need to get there. We absolutely need to get there.
Well, and this is probably an internal conversation and a thing that you can't necessarily answer, but I mean, I've worked in positions where we had salary ranges and you had people who were above and you had people who were below, and part of that was based on, is somebody gonna hit the top of their salary range and not be able to get any raises or whatnot? And so you have to take all of the years that might be required in their job into consideration and whatnot. So my other question is, and this is probably a question for you, Mayor, I'm assuming you have the compensation administration guide?
I do. We just got the final guide within the last couple of days.
Okay, and
I'll
will we
be
be getting a copy?
absolutely.
Of
It
that?
will be, yes.
Other questions that I had, because some of these questions I wrote before your presentation, so some of them you've answered. One of the things that I saw in this document, it says that you collected data via direct participation and some via supplemental research. So how much was collected via direct participation versus supplemental research? Is there like a percentage?
There were 9 organizations that provided information in response to this survey, and there were 2 organizations that we completed supplemental research on. So the team here at Hub completed supplemental research on 2 of the 11 organizations.
Okay, and then when you got information back from the other cities, did they provide, because it wasn't clear to me when you were describing what you got back from them, did they provide you also their job description that they thought matched ours and also the qualifications for their positions with the data that they provided to you?
They provided their job match within their organization, so they provided the corresponding job title, FLSA status, and then the pay range information. They did not provide job descriptions for all of their job matches.
What about and then I'm assuming then they did not provide qualifications either.
Right. They used the data collection file that listed Danville's qualifications to make a determination of what was the appropriate job match in their organization.
Okay, so let's say, for example, we have a position in our organization that doesn't require a degree. It might be the same title and similar responsibilities, but let's say we don't require a degree and they do require a degree. Would that potentially create a mismatch in terms of our compensation versus their compensation?
That would come into play on whether that impacted their job matching, if it would create less than a 75% match. So, yes, that is one thing we do ask organizations to look at the job information as a whole and make that assessment and that determination. A lot of times organizations will use education and years of experience in lieu of one another. So that does help with that kind of apples to apples comparison.
So how do we, or how do you verify the validity of the 75%? Like, because I feel like that is left to interpretation.
It is best practice to rely on their job matching. It is uncommon to go through and collect 100 job descriptions from every organization. That would definitely have prolonged the project timeline for sure. But yes, it usually you rely on your HR contacts to submit the data. They know the jobs within their organization, and they are able to complete that process with accuracy, which is why we do rely on them.
Okay. My next question. Is there any comparison to equalize the size of the other cities as it relates to maybe cost of living or the size of a city's overall budget or anything of that nature, and so we can have apples to apples comparison of Danville to those other cities?
We did look at comparable organizations in terms of population. So we did not reach out to organizations that were significantly larger. When we look at the organizations that did provide their data, most are within a reasonable range of Danville's population. So that would be something that would have been a concern if we had reached out to large cities and they only, those are the only types of cities that we gather data from. But that's why we reached out to the cities that we did, because that was obviously a key factor when looking at, city size, number of employees in the city. Those do impact compensation. So we wanted to make sure that we had reasonable comparables up front before we collected that data.
Okay. The next question I have is as relates to union. So I know you said 80% of our jobs were included in the study. What percentage of our jobs are union? Does anybody know? Or do you know? I don't know who knows, but I'm just asking.
Approximately 60 of, let's say, 240 to 300 jobs, depending upon the season, are non-union. So 25 to 20 to 25% of our positions are non-union. So approximately 75% of our positions in the city of Danville are union.
So does union take any consideration into what was provided, or does it go into consideration at all, I guess is my question.
We used all union and non-union positions.
No, I understand. I think what I'm trying to get an understanding of is whether or not those other cities have union jobs that are comparable to ours, because obviously when we have union contracts that determine our compensation, that makes a difference versus if you were in another environment where there's not union. And I don't know if those other cities are union or not. I'm just wondering if that was taken into consideration at all.
I know for sure Champaign, Urbana, and Vermilion County have unions. I can't tell you about the other 8 municipalities. Well, actually, East Peoria and Normal I know because we use them for fire. I'm not sure about the others. I'm not sure about the rest. So at least 5 of them have unions.
Okay. I guess the other questions that I have are related to elected official positions, because one of the things that I asked for before we actually requested the study was mayor and alderman. And so one of the questions that I have, because I looked at what's on here, and mayor, alderman, and treasurer, because treasurer is an elected position here. So one of the questions that I have is whether or not, as it relates to city treasurer, how many of the comp data locations were elected versus employees?
I can get you that answer. I don't know that I have that off the top of my head.
Okay. Because and the reason why I asked is because prior to us hiring you guys to do this research, we had lengthy conversations and discussions about elected official compensation. And at that time, I did my own research, and I'm a data hound. So I looked at a lot of data from a lot of different places, specifically looking at mayor, treasurer, and alderman. And one of the things that I have found, and I even took some time to look at these comparable cities myself just to see what I could find on my own. One of the things that is a struggle to find as it relates to the treasurer position is that every city doesn't have an elected treasurer. So it's hard to be able to find what is appropriate compensation for that position. So that's one of the reasons why I'm asking the question, because saying that we looked at 11 other cities is good, but if of those 11, 9 of those treasurers are not elected and they're actual employees versus an elected official, that may or may not make make an impact on the decisions that we make for how the treasurer position, for example, should be compensated going forward.
Yeah, I could dig into that one for you.
Okay. And then my other question is about the mayor's position, because the numbers that I'm seeing here do not jive with what I found in my research. And so my question on the mayor's position is specifically, how did we arrive at the fact that this position should be compensated at this level? Is it just that the mayor was slotted into this position because it's 16? Or is that actual comparable mayoral compensation? Because I could not find any data that shows a minimum pay for a mayor of $130,000, even at these cities.
The mayor compensation that we did find in the survey was not indicative of an individual working full-time in a leadership position. So the mayor position was aligned in the pay structure with other leadership positions.
So, well, at least 2 of those cities I know do have mayors that, Zionsville and I think Lafayette have mayors that actually run their city that don't have city managers, if my research is accurate. Yes, I agree with that. So, and I don't know if all of the studying is done for this, but I would think that it would make sense for the elected positions that we compare it to other cities that are comparable in their governance to Danville, because you cannot compare a mayor to a village manager or a city manager or a city administrator, mainly because the qualifications for a city administrator usually is a MPA or MBA, sometimes an attorney, whereas the qualifications for a mayor is you won because people elected you. And this is not about our current mayor or any prior mayor or any future mayor, but that is a lot of compensation for a position that does not have any educational requirement associated with it.
I think that it seems like, Ashley, when we talked about this, that you all did look a little bit at city managers and other positions and some of the other communities as well, if I recall. And looking at, I said it seems to me,
She can't hear you. He said that you looked at city managers and those other communities.
in some of them I know.
And some of them.
Right.
Right, okay. We looked at city managers, but not mayors that run their city in lieu of a city manager, correct?
Something that I want to say here is we're talking about comparing job descriptions to job descriptions for everyone else. So my question to you, Vice Mayor, is why would we not do that for the mayor? If we're comparing people who are doing the job, because the truth is, whether it be me or whoever, I do the job of a mayor and a city manager, and it doesn't matter that I don't have a degree. I have to do all of that.
As do other mayors.
Right,
So what I
exactly.
would
But
want
but
for
what
us
your
to
data
do-
didn't include was people who have both.
And what I would want for us to do is only compare our city to other cities that are just like ours. It doesn't make sense to compare us to a city that has a city manager when the city manager requires a lot of development, a lot of experience, and a lot of education before they get to that position. There are plenty of other cities where the mayor runs the city just like you do, and we should compare it to them. If there are 10 of them out there, there's got to be, because there's at least 2 on this list. And the 2 that are on this list, their mayors, Zionsville and Lafayette, don't make what you make.
And they also are in Indiana where they have no property
I
tax
also
and everything
compared it
else.
and I also compared it to Illinois previously.
And you didn't include some of the other mayors, some of the other positions that were there.
No, when I compared it previously, I specifically looked at cities where the governance was city council mayor without a city manager. I excluded anybody that had a city manager on purpose so that there would be an apples to apples comparison. Because the truth of the matter is, I didn't care what the compensation was because it wasn't about you or anybody else. I just wanted to look at the raw data.
Yeah.
I found 5 cities in the state of Illinois where they are paying taxes, and I saw the raw data, and the raw data did support it. I said that then. But I wanted to see a further study. So I am in agreement that we do need to study it, but we need to have an apples to apples comparison. Because a person who is in a city manager position has worked in city administration for at least 15 years prior to even becoming a city manager. And they've had MPA, they have an MPA or MBA. I looked on the, there's an association of city managers. I looked on their website when I was doing my research for this. Not for the prior study, but for this.
So it doesn't matter what a person does or how much they do. The only thing that matters to you is their degree and their experience.
I would imagine that experience does matter. Because what a person does in a job description, you cannot determine whether or not a person should get paid based on what they do. Because they may or may not be doing an effective job. People on this council or who have been on this council have had issues with prior administrations and may have issues with future administrations on their effectiveness in their position. Compensation, if it's merit-based, should be based on a person's effectiveness in their position, not because I sit in a position and have a specific title.
When you have to set the compensation for 4 years, 6 months before the election, it's a little bit more challenging, but your point is well taken.
The concern here is whether or not the data supports it. I asked a question about mayor and where the number came from. What was said was it was compared to city managers who work under a mayor and under council governance is not the same as a mayor who runs a city. Does the education make a difference? Yes, I think that there's a reason why people go and matriculate through university and get master's degree in public administration. You may have one. That doesn't, but every mayor won't.
Yep.
And this, like I said, this is
A
not about
laborer is
you.
worth his hire.
Like I said, this is not about you. It's about what makes sense for our city and also having an apples to apples comparison so that when we look at the data, that it's not possibly skewed. And on that particular number, it is. On the other things, it may or may not be. I don't know. So that's why I asked the questions that I asked, because I was curious about those things. And let me double check and make sure. And then I guess one of the other questions is on the alderman info, it just said average monthly alderman pay in Illinois starts at $27.92. So does it take out the outliers? Because for example, on this number, I don't think that it makes sense for us to be at $27.92 monthly if you include places like Chicago. But again, it's not about what you do, it's about what makes the most sense from the data. So for the number on here for aldermen, is this every city in Illinois, or does it remove outliers to get us closer to what makes most sense?
The Alderman information was gathered from Comp Analyst Market Data, which compiles data from organizations, and that information does include organizations of all sizes, or cities of all sizes.
Okay. And I think that, wait a minute, I'm on the other side. Oh no, that's a good answer. I think that concludes all of my questions.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had to shut off my video. My meeting room was scheduled until 7, so I had to relocate. So
Okay, no problem.
that's why my camera is off at the moment.
Oops.
Yes,
I'm sorry, I pressed the button by
Alderman
accident.
Pickering.
I pressed the button by accident. Sure.
These questions might have already been answered, but I just didn't hear the answers. Was there considerations for the years of service?
Job data was pulled in from the other cities based on the job requirements. The information looking at tenure would be something that could be pulled in on the financial modeling that we completed. We did not specifically finalize a model with years of service or tenure.
Okay, and the other question, the cities that we were compared to, did you look at their budgets? Were they close to our budgets?
We looked at population size and distance. So we looked at it in terms of where might you be competing against for talent in these positions.
Thank you.
So geographic proximity was a larger factor, as well as population.
I don't think one of the vice mayor's questions was completely answered. She asked about cost of living. When you look at these 11 cities, some of them, like Romeoville's cost of living is considerably different than Danville's. So how much effect does cost of living have?
When we focus on compensation, most organizations are focused on cost of labor in their compensation philosophy and strategy. And there is a difference between cost of living and cost of labor. So cost of labor is more focused on how much a job is worth or what a job would be paid in the market. So most organizations focus on cost of labor, not necessarily cost of living, which is more about a basket of goods and services, if you will, of really looking at a certain lifestyle or supporting a certain lifestyle. So most focus on cost of labor and don't make adjustments just based on a cost of living rate.
Okay.
Other questions you have for Ashley? All right. Ashley, thank you so much for being with us this evening. We appreciate you answering all the questions that everyone had, and I will also be providing, I know that you'll get back with Vice Mayor about the question, and then we will provide also the compensation philosophy to the alderman as well.
Excellent. Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, up next. Goodness, it's the night of presentations. This one I think will be a little bit more fun for everyone, hopefully. Pardon?
We're getting money.
That's right. At this time, I would like to invite Logan to introduce the folks who are going to talk to us about our DCO RISE grant for downtown revitalization plan.
Yeah, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but their firm name is Studio GWA, and as a reminder to the City Council, a little less than a year ago, the city staff had applied for a DCO RISE grant, and we were awarded for $75,000 to create the plan and draft plan that you're going to be seeing tonight. This application was written for this downtown revitalization plan, and we're really excited for Studio GWA to be presenting the draft plan tonight. And just as an item of information, the final plan is due to DCEO by the end of December. So Studio GWA.
Thank you. Hear me okay? I'm Ashley Sarver with Studio GWA. I have Michael here as well with Studio GWA, and then Dana Sarver, no relation, from Redevelopment Resources. Just a happy coincidence that we happen to have the last name. We're happy to present. We have had the pleasure of working with you all since about May when we kicked things off, looking at specifically the downtown area, focusing on the grant that was awarded. And so some of the topics that we dove into within our study area downtown are understanding the economy, assessing the redevelopment potential, and I would say that would be the bulk of the work that we looked at was the redevelopment potential within the buildings and also within the streetscape, placemaking activities, as well as improving the connectivity through transportation. So next slide, please. At a glance, this is the area, you know it well, you're downtown. So the yellow box shows the study area boundaries that were submitted as part of the grant application. And while this was the bounding box of a lot of our analysis, it wasn't necessarily excluded to this. The surrounding neighborhoods, adjacent parcels, things happening in the surrounding area were taken into consideration. And so this is approximately 60 acres, 141 buildings, and it's not a small amount of space, as you well know. So moving into just some of the previous plans that we looked at, knowing that, we're not working in a vacuum for this work, we looked at previous plans that have been done to set the context as we were diving into our research. The downtown plan that was completed in 2017, the previous comprehensive plan, the regional bike plan, some of the riverfront plans, and knowing that there's also a downtown parking plan coming forward, which Michael will speak to in a little while. So we wanted to make sure that our work was aligning with that, not recreating the wheel, but hopefully building upon it.
We interviewed 15 key stakeholders. They included representatives from the business community, city staff, nonprofit organizations. We provided some information at the first Black Friday event or not Black Friday, I'm sorry, in the holiday season here, Back to School Bash on August 4th. That was a survey that was provided, and then our organizations attended the Artisan Table and Market. We had a booth there, as well as an online survey and an in-person survey. The overwhelming impression that we've gotten through these different outreach methods was that there's a lot of local demand for restaurants. Next, we looked at what does the current city of Danville as a whole look like in comparison to Vermilion County? What are the current trends in population and household growth, employment growth, household income and projections, just to kind of get a thumbprint. Now, these are what is currently happening in your city. That means that as things progress, this is something that's going to need to be continually monitored and adjusted. We also, so there's like the resident side of things, and that only tells half the story because you have people coming to visit downtown from all over the county, if not the rest of the state and Midwest. So what does that look like? And there are two very large consumer markets. The first is autumn years. Those are your retired or nearly retired blue-collar workers making about $50,000 to $75,000 a year. They're extremely loyal to and value the patriotic elements of and being rooted in the community. And then there's families in motion. These are your young couples with 2 or more children at home. And they enjoy the outdoors and taking like really budget-friendly vacations to, say, the state fair or the zoo and going camping and doing those kinds of activities. Another thing we looked at was the impact of COVID on the downtown. So we wanted to understand, okay, what did downtown look like before COVID, during COVID, and afterwards? And one of the things that's really interesting that this chart points out is in about the spring, summer of 2021, downtown activity picked up to pre-COVID impact levels. I mean, it's not terribly surprising to see that the lowest dot on that is during the COVID epidemic, but then also the dots that are at usually like spike up, those are your first Friday events. So some of our recommendations really want to leverage those opportunities because you obviously have a really captured market to appeal to those visitors.
Thank you. I was just about to talk without it. The heart of this section, the redevelopment analysis section, is what we are calling catalytic sites. These are 9 properties in the study area that we think are most suitable for redevelopment. Now, supporting these catalytic sites are as follows. A downtown property inventory. So of the 9, behind that, there are 141 buildings. And there are multiple data sources that shape our recommendation of these catalytic sites. There are multiple data sources. This includes the input of key stakeholders, city staff, findings from our first Friday public engagement sessions, and of equal importance, quantitative data. This all gets handed to the city upon completion of this report. But the general level, these categories that are behind this inventory are the conditions of the building, its ownership, use, and activation, and also its redevelopment potential. So what you'll see here are just a handful of maps from the report, including commercial ground floor activity, as well as the potential for upper floors of select buildings to be used for residential units. Again, this is just very high level, but we know that an active, vibrant downtown, it has high occupancy on the ground floor and has mixing of uses, not least residential on upper floors. So what are the catalytic sites? I know it might be a little hard to see here, but we have 9 in total. And each catalytic site on the report will have some stats, a simple description, and a description of its potential building program. And then some sites will also have additional resources such as an architectural rendering or a pro forma financial feasibility analysis that comes with it. Finally, each catalytic site has what is called a void analysis. So we didn't just want to say, well, the program should be retail on the first floor and residential on the upper floors. We wanted to have a nationwide data source, licensed data source, give us retail or commercial fit recommendations based within a certain catchment. So I know Dana will kind of answer questions as needed for that. But what I wanted to illustrate here is just one particular site. This is the Adams Building. We know it. It's a National Register listed building. That's a good key trait to have. This particular one recommendation or catalytic site that includes a financial summary, which is very hard to read there on the right. I apologize. Some key extractions from that spreadsheet to the right includes it's assuming a building program of first floor either being for retail or office, and the upper floors being used for residential, 24 units in total. What you don't see on the very bottom is an assumed return on investment, which is 3%. That is not much, admittedly, but what it includes is a capital stack of multiple funding sources, including pay-as-you-go TIF, federal and state historic tax credits, and low-income housing tax credits. Now, we want to be transparent here to show that it takes multiple funding sources to make redevelopment work, and that is not unique to the Adams Building. It's not unique to Danville's downtown study area. Quite frankly, it's not unique to multiple municipalities downstate, including Rockford, Illinois, where we are at. We know that redevelopment of existing traditional building stock is challenging, but we wanted to show the multiple funding sources used. To be honest, some will pencil out better than others, but this is one site that we wanted to illustrate. Again, not all catalytic sites have this pro forma feasibility study associated with them, but we just wanted to illustrate that one. The void analysis here, again, we wanted to be a little bit more specific than just saying retail or commercial on the first floor. So again, this is identifying a relative fit for a potential retail or commercial category. It assigns what's called a fit score. The higher is usually the better. And then it will locate a chain within a drive time and provide some other attributes to say this would be an ideal fit for the first floor program of the building. I do want to clarify here, it's showing potential chains that have demand in the area. It is not suggesting that Books A Million is going to find a great fit in the Adams building. In fact, the recommendation in the report includes localizing chains. So it's saying if a chain's here, then they have a demand in the area, right? You might not find a good fit of Books A Million there. Books A Million might not find a good fit in the Adams building, but it looks at that retail category, and then we'll do is try to contextualize that further in the report by saying you need to localize that. Dana, am I missing anything?
So here, I'll give you more of a concrete example too. So like the breakfast, coffee, bakery, dessert shop, that's a category. And those are specific kinds of chains that might fit. But you might want to go to Madison and go and look at one of the local bakeries there downtown and say, hey, would you like to open a second store? We have data that provides evidence that a bakery or coffee shop like yours is a good fit here. So that's what Michael is referring to, is like, how do you localize that? Go to your neighboring communities and try to recruit them with this information.
This section concludes with recommendations that are listed under two categories. To the left, the primary audience of the products that are in the bullet point is property owners and developers, generally those with a real estate interest. So, and this will be included in the implementation strategy with multiple entities. So please don't assume we're dumping this on city staff and elected officials to do all of these things. We know that it takes a community, especially with the bullet points in the first column, right? This includes building a strategic marketing plan, building a developer network, hosting said developers and property owners, right, for a developer familiarization tour and so on. But just at a high level, that is the primary audience, folks with a real estate interest. Either they already own or they are developers who are interested or you want them to be interested in a property in Danville. To the right, I think these have implications for city staff and for council consideration, including the creation of a National Register Historic District, building of a revolving loan fund, creating a downtown rental rehabilitation incentive program, and strengthening the existing vacant building registry program. For the sake of time, we did just want to elaborate on one recommendation, which is the creation of a National Register Historic District. This is distinct from just a local historic district or a local landmark that would have implications for aesthetics, improvements, and not have any sort of funding sources that are tied to it. The creation of a National Register Historic District opens up properties that are either listed on the National Register or contributing buildings within a district. That opens up their eligibility to receive federal and or state historic tax credits. As we illustrated in the Adams building, that is not a unique building. I think if we ran feasibility analyses on multiple buildings in the study area, we would find that historic tax credits would be a very key funding source in a redevelopment scenario. So in addition to the 6 buildings that are already listed on the National Register, we identified over 60 others that could be potentially contributing. Now, that is hinged on the creation of a district, which is hinged on a nomination. That can be a lengthy process. It can take 18 to 24 months. I think time is of the essence, and it's very important to consider that. One recommendation among many, again, we're just trying to illustrate a catalytic site, one recommendation for the purposes of tonight.
One other piece on the historic district, those tax credits can help fund the project in the amount of about 45% of project costs. So it just helps alleviate the ask or the request, potentially from city council, from city finances, where instead of funding that gap with city funds or state funds, that maybe those can be filled with those federal and state historic tax credits. So hopefully it helps alleviate some of the pressure in that way. Getting into the placemaking, this is basically building on a lot of what you've been doing for the First Fridays. There's been so much good activity. Placemaking is really more of the low-hanging fruit, more of the programmatic approaches to redevelopment. So instead of necessarily thinking everything that we're recommending has to be a large redevelopment project, there are these other pieces that can be bitten off that maybe could be done in the next 6 months, next year, that wouldn't require as much of an investment. And I think with these, it's also important to think that, trial is kind of the best approach. You might try something and it doesn't work. There wasn't a large amount of money put into that. Kind of redirect it, try it again, try it in a different way. So some of those activities that we're looking at would be those on the left, conducting historic walking and biking tours, helping people become familiar with the shared history of Danville. And then also kind of leaning into that families in motion demographic that we have here of providing opportunities for families and children to enjoy low-cost downtown activities. We heard that from stakeholders when we were here for First Friday. And some of the ways that we've recommended that are through some of the amenities that you see on the right. So one piece of that could be the activation and lighting of alleys for additional visual interest, but also for safety and what we're calling activity zones. So if there's a way to do pop-up fencing that could be put in the alley, that alley is lit, it's provided as an opportunity for families to come and kind of close off that space and have a particular use for that, either that evening, that week, that month, and then perhaps move it to a different place. Additionally would be the expansion of landscaping along side streets. So Vermilion is in really beautiful shape. It would be the recommendation to continue that work. And we understand that there are some efforts looking at that. Gateway signage and additionally increasing some of the mural and public art installations within the downtown area that can engage the community as the artists, but then also engage the people who are in the downtown who live here or who are visiting.
The last section we'll discuss tonight is transportation, with a couple of caveats. The first is that this is in progress. We are approaching completion here in the next couple of weeks, but we wanted to give you kind of a summary of the progress at this point. Additionally, we do understand that the city has secured a consultant to do a downtown parking study. So I think you'll see in the report there is a stopping point. There's only so much that we can do when we're like analyzing parking, right, without having additional data that the consultant hasn't produced yet, right? So our goal is to be complementary and make sure that planning process is continuous and as seamless as possible, right? So what we did thus far is analyze the existing street network with about 100-foot buffer of the study area. So we're looking at the road classifications, the traffic counts, safety in and around the study area, looking at crash extracts from the last 10 years, particularly to identify hotspots. And then also looking at downtown parking, both on-street and off-street. Off-street being a particular focus because we have exact locations and counts. Street parking gets a little choppy for us at this point because not everything is marked. So we do have estimated counts, but that's a good handoff point for the parking consultants that's been secured. Another thing that we've wanted to do, the grant really was centered on connectivity. So when you're here, either as a resident, as an employee, as an owner, whether that trip begins and ends with a walk or begins with driving, parking, and then you become that pedestrian, how accessible is that study area? Now, accessibility is different from mobility, right? Accessibility meaning how much, what can I get in a certain catchment, right? So if I am at one parking lot and then that's the only place I have is the one destination, I have a low degree of accessibility. But here we wanted to see in the study boundary, if I park at a certain place, such as the public parking lots that are illustrated, and once I am at the intersection of Vermilion and North, where First Friday Hub is at, how many minutes does it take for me to get two destinations in the study area? So each little diamond illustrated on the right is about a 1-minute walk, right? The result here, high degree of accessibility. Most destinations are within a 4-minute walk. For some who are just bopping in and out on an errand, that's too long, right? But for employees, public, private, for residences, for events to First Friday, 4 minutes, you get a high degree of accessibility. Again, we already talked about this, but our recommendations forthcoming will be very general, consisting of capital improvements and some programming strategies. Our goal, again, is to make sure our handoff between this plan and the downtown parking study is as seamless as possible.
And so next, over the next couple of weeks, we will be taking these recommendations that we've developed and pairing that with who's going to do it, who all could be involved, as well as potential funding sources. So when we're making recommendations about, a revolving loan fund, it will be a recommendation that includes what are we seeding that fund with, whether that be CDBG funds, TIF dollars, or perhaps private funds. Those will be things that we're adding to this implementation matrix, as well as the timeline. Again, some things are going to be a slow burn. It's going to take years, if not decades. Others maybe could be accomplished in the next year. So we're going to put that all into a matrix so that hopefully it's a one-stop shop. You can look at that, see all those recommendations, and just kind of use it almost as a work plan throughout the next year to 5 to 10 years. So we will include that. And that concludes our presentation, but we would like to open up to any questions, answer any questions or concerns.
Alderman, what questions do you have for GWA? Yes, Vice Mayor?
I have two questions. One was, there was the guide that showed the usability of the buildings that had the upstairs and the downstairs. I just wanted to I just need to see it again so I can ask for a point of clarification. This one.
Okay.
Yes. So the one on the left is ground floor and the one on the right is upper floor, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so on the right, we basically have a number of inactive upper floors. And then on the left, we've got a combination of active and inactive.
Correct. Yeah. And by our estimate, if we're doing an average of, say, 850 square feet per unit, residential unit, that's an estimated 500 units that could be added to the downtown area.
Okay.
By that upper floor availability.
Okay. And then my other question, can you go to the slide? This is an internal question, but the slide that had the list of buildings.
Oh, the 9 catalytic site.
This. Aren't some of these buildings condemned?
Yes, either that or posted uninhabitable.
Which one
I
of these
think,
is condemned?
is Rick's Furniture in there?
Sears building, I believe, is condemned.
Sears is condemned or posted uninhabitable.
It's uninhabitable, yeah.
I can't
That's
read
the
it.
only one, though.
Is JCPenney?
No, it's not on there.
Yeah, that's
The Adams Building, Sears, the place where Vermilion River Beer is, the old bread store,
Yep.
The Commercial News, the Windbreaker Building where,
Danville Paper Supply.
yep, that's right. And then the next to the furniture store on Main Street. What building is this?
City building, or city storage, or
The
School
school district storage space.
Yeah.
And then that was Oxner Properties, I think, on there on Vermilion. The Pagoda and the walkthrough area is there. So I think Vice Mayor, only that one is listed uninhabitable right now.
correct.
Okay, so all the others are not listed uninhabitable. So what, because I know you guys said condition of the building is one of the criteria that you looked at. So what is the condition for, obviously I know, for example, I know the Sears building has issues. So what is what is the minimum condition that the building needs to be in for you guys to have considered on your list?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of the reverse. In order to maximize the impact, it's almost looking at the ones that are in worse condition to make the most impact, and also the building size that had enough critical mass to be able to put enough units that could attract potentially an out-of-town developer to be able to make that investment.
Yeah, and this was also shaped by key stakeholder input where, consisting of business owners, property owners who have said, like, there's an entrepreneurial spirit that is alive here. It just can't tackle 20,000 square feet, right? We can do 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, but so I think people are like, we recognize the need for other developers, and we also recognize like how critical it is to have occupancy in these large buildings. Otherwise, it leaves a gaping hole. So again, knowing that a key audience here is people with a real estate interest, either current or prospective property owners, we wanted to elevate that. And then also make sure that we're pairing it with the right incentives. A nomination consultant for a National Register district, in our opinion, should showcase the merchandising, the commercial powerhouse that this downtown district has always been. And so when we see former department stores, we think that's a testament to that, and a nomination consultant should highlight that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, a couple clarifying things too. I neglected to state, as is obvious here, some properties are clearly vacant and others are vibrant, active, contributing buildings to downtown. So when we include like the Dale building, it is an illustration of let's take something good and make it better. So the implication here is let's not relocate existing buildings, but in the instance of the Dale building in the report, it is taking a property and then occupying upper units. So should go without saying, I hope, but the other thing is in the former Sears building, one scenario that's illustrated in a rendering is subdividing that property into 4 and having multiple storefronts. And I think that makes it feasible, not just for the owner, but for prospective tenants. Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all so much. I know you've got a long way to go, but we appreciate you all being with us and for all the great work that you've done so far.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This time I would like to open the hearing on our fiscal year 2024-2025 proposed budget. Is there anyone in the audience to speak either in favor of or opposed to the proposed budget? Seeing none, I will close the hearing. Madam Clerk, at this time, we'll receive any petitions, communications, and audience comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Has everyone had a chance to complete a yellow card who wishes to speak this evening? Okay, when I call your name, please come to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Greg Thatcher of Danville regarding off or on-street parking, abandoned or unclaimed vehicles.
I hope everybody's still awake. Greg Thatcher, 428 Oak Street. I came the Wednesday before Thanksgiving in regard to abandoned vehicles or unlicensed vehicles, unclaimed, however you want to classify it. And I was assured that that would be addressed. It still hasn't been addressed, so I'm not really sure that I understand our local code and ordinance in regard to vehicles that use off-street parking as their primary parking 365 days a year. Here, it says within 7 consecutive days if the vehicle has not been moved. This all started around November 10th, I believe, or 8th actually, and then I called on the 10th, and the police officer who came out said there were no violations. Then I noticed that the tags were not, there were no tow tags on the vehicle, so I called back, and the office or the 911 operator said the police officer said there were no violations, but I could speak to another officer. I don't know their numbers. Anyways, he called me, she said I had to speak to somebody, and he said that there were clear violations, and they didn't understand why the other police officer didn't tag the vehicles. Nonetheless, it's excuse me, nearly 30 days later, there's still no resolution. They've backed a trailer, an unlicensed trailer, into an alley that is vacated, but the city owns half of that alley. And the box trailer truck still sits on the street unmoved 30 days later, when the ordinance clearly states 7 consecutive days of not having moved. I'm a little concerned about why we have ordinances if we're not going to enforce them, how we enforce ordinances, what's the purpose of having them if we're not going to enforce them. I would think that, I remember when growing up in the parking days, the parking meter attendants would chalk the tires with a piece of chalk or mark them in a way with a wax crayon or something so that they know whether or not the vehicle has or hasn't been moved. None of that was done, yet the vehicle still sits there 30 days later. So hopefully somebody can get back with me, explain all this to me, and offer some kind of resolution as to why this hasn't been addressed 30 days later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did call you back and I haven't heard back.
I don't have a message.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council this evening? Seeing none, there are no zoning petitions. However, you have the payrolls of November 22nd and 27th, as well as December 1st. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streaming? Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York? Cooper?
Yes again.
Sorry. Long story. 11 yes.
11 yes, the motion carries. You have also before you the vouchers payable for November 28th, as well as the December 5th, and as well as a special run for December 5th. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing? Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York? Cooper?
Yes.
11 yes.
11 yes, the motion carries. At this time, we will receive our Public Services Committee, Vice Chairman Pickering.
Thank you, Mayor. 12A is a resolution, approving the application of the Saucony Run for the Good Foundation for the Saucony Run for the Good Foundation grant. At this time, I'll make a motion to dispense with the reading and ask for their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing? Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York? Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
11 yes.
11 yes, the motion carries.
12B is a resolution approving the application to the Office of the Illinois State Fire Marshal, OSFM, for small equipment grant. At this time, I'll make a motion to dispense with the reading and ask for their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing? Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York? Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
11 yes.
11 yes, the motion carries.
12C is a resolution authorizing the purchase of police department vehicles and disposal of the used, vehicles. At this time, I'll make a motion to dispense of the reading and ask for their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing? Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York? Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands? Bouchard?
Yes.
11 yes.
11 yes, the motion carries.
12D is a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement with Danville Community Consolidated School District 118 for the School Resource Officers, SROS, and the budget amendment for the fiscal year 2023-24, General Fund 001, Police Division Department 21 budget. At this time, I'll make a motion to dispense with the reading and ask for their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Yes.
Chris doesn't mind. Could you explain the percentages to everybody again on these?
The current 3 is going to just carry over to be the same as 75%, and that's to cover the school year. The new position, the 4th position, will be 100% salary and benefits.
Yeah, that's what I wanted everybody to know. And there's possibility of additional, I mean, has there been talk about it? 5?
Nothing official, but informally, I know that, they've discussed it, but I don't know where District 118 and the board is on it.
Any further discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Iverson?
Yes.
Poor?
Yes.
Streaming, Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York? Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
11 yes.
11 yes, the motion carries.
12D is approving the reimbursement of state funds due to overpayment from the Illinois Department of Transportation. At this time, I make a motion to dispense with the reading and ask for their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate?
This is E, right? Not
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
E.
correct.
I'm sorry.
That's correct. Any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Chairman Poor?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Pickering?
Yes.
Alderman Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York? Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
11 yes.
11 yes, the motion carries.
If there's no objections, we could take 12F and G together. 12F is authorizing the acceptance of the Illinois Housing Department Authority IHDA grant from Homeowner Assistant Fund Home Repair Program. And G is amending the fiscal year 2023-24 budget and creating a fund for Illinois Housing Development Authorities, IHDA, Homeowner Assistant Fund, Home Repair Program Fund, HAFHR. At this time, I'll make a motion to dispense with the reading and ask for their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Vice Chairman Pickering?
Yes.
Alderman Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York? Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Poor?
Yes.
Streaming? 11 yes.
11 yes, the motion carries.
Items of information, our next public service meeting will be December the 26th here in these chambers. And Mayor, that concludes our public service report.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Actually, we will likely not have a meeting that day in lieu of the holiday.
They always get that off. Let's make them come.
Okay.
So your next one will be in January,
Okay.
Madam Vice Chair.
Okay.
All right. At this time, we will receive our Public Works Committee report. Chairman Poor.
Thank you, Mayor. 13A is an ordinance approving the purchase of real estate for community improvement and amending the fiscal year 23-24 Fund 310 Community Reinvestment Budget. Move to dispense reading and ask for your approval. Need a second.
So moved. Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate?
Yeah, just quick question. What are we doing with this? I mean, why are we buying this property? It's on North Griffin.
This is the last property for the Garfield Park redevelopment.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to get with somebody and find out what's going on with that. I don't have that. That's fine.
Mayor, is there still 2 properties standing?
Yes, sir. This will be the property to the south.
Okay.
And once those folks move out, then we'll be
Is
able
someone
to-
still living in it currently?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I went by, I seen it look like one of them was abandoned and about to fall down. The other one looked like someone was living in it.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Fall down.
Yeah. Any further, yes, Vice Mayor?
My question is, when will we start with demolition?
As soon as, we have to be sure that there's no asbestos, but if not, then it'll be relatively quickly.
Yeah. Tenant will be closing on another property to relocate to the same day of closing for this one, which is hopefully next Friday. And so after that, utility termination, asbestos survey report, give it a month or 2.
And will we
secure the property? Because the other property next to it has pretty much been torn to pieces
Yeah.
because it really wasn't secured.
Just depends how many times we want to send the public works guys out to keep re-securing it. They are plywooded right after acquisition, but they are broken into almost immediately after that occurs.
And then the is it the Dines location? What's status on that?
Yeah. We'll have a little bit more of a substantial report to give you within the next month.
Okay.
But it is still in progress.
Okay.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Any further discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York? Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streaming? Pickering?
Yes.
11 yes.
11 yes, the motion carries.
Any items of information, guys? No. There, that concludes our report.
Thank you. Chairman, I might add just, he probably would not want me to say anything, but I'm going to. Carl is having some back issues, and so keep him in your prayers. Director Carpenter, sorry. At this time, we have item 14, discussion of fiscal year 2024 budget and tax levy, as well as the capital improvement plan. I will turn things over to Comptroller Massey.
Good evening. The second budget, or the second draft of the city budget is in your Dropbox. If you can't find it on your Dropbox, you can also go to the city website under finance. Both the first and second draft are both there if anyone's interested in comparing. There's been two major changes between the first and second draft. The first is open enrollment information. Obviously, we discussed that. After all of the open enrollment information was keyed for all employees on an individual basis, we still weren't to a balanced budget, about a deficit of $45,000. We went back and asked department division heads to cut their general fund budgets by 0.5% for non-personnel expenditures. They did that. That's been applied. What's in front of you is a $4,300 in the black budget. I've distributed that to department and division heads today, requesting a thorough review and specific feedback. I've already heard from one, so to make sure, you know, this I do this all in Excel, so you know I am human, so I asked them to review that. Are there any questions? Oh, what I did not put in the budget presentation, I said that I would be adding 2 funds to the second draft. I only added 1. I added the IDA property owner rehab grant fund. That is in there. There's a position associated with that, the rehabilitation specialist, to help facilitate that grant. That's a fully reimbursable position. So you'll see that in the draft budget. What I did not add was the USDA forestry grant. Since that presentation, we've heard correspondence from them. We originally applied for $5 million. We were awarded 1 point something. I think it was 1.2 million. We're having a meeting with them, or the city's having a meeting with them here in a couple weeks, and they're, I guess, going to communicate what they would like us to spend that money on, what goals that we had originally applied for that they want to prioritize. So that makes it very hard for us to put in a budget if we're not necessarily picking. So we just decided when we sign that grant agreement, it comes back to council, we'll just create the fund and amend the budget at that time, since it would be fully fundable. No reason to confuse and add that out there. So that's the budget. Are there any questions about that before I move on to the levy?
Yes.
In regards to that salary thing we just heard, did you include that in there or not?
That was in the first draft of the budget that I went over. The compensation study, it was evaluated on 3 levels. First, every employee was put in for a 2% increase. After that, I evaluated union agreements, and if there was anything outside of the 2%, that was applied. So we have 2 unions I know off the top of my head that had a 3% agreement for that fiscal year, so that was plugged in. And then every individual salary was evaluated and compared to the compensation study pay range for each position, and if a position was not at its minimum, it was brought to the minimum. So that was in the first draft. No changes there for the second draft.
And that does not include the mayor, treasurer, or alderman.
Yeah,
because
all
are
of those
set by
positions are set
statute.
by ordinance, yeah.
So $652,000 has been added to the budget for the salaries that she just talked about.
Around there, yes.
Minus $38,000 for the mayor's position, and I think around $6,000 or $7,000. So minus 45,000. So probably $600,000 in salaries.
How would that be when she said, that lady on that study said the additional money was going to take to bring us up to her par
That's
was
because of,
$652,000. We didn't talk about yours or.
I can answer that. So that's because of timing. So she's saying from what they're currently making to get everyone within their midpoint would be that amount. But that does
their
not factor
minimum.
in that before I did that, everyone in the budget received a 2% increase, which we would have probably offered either way. So that's the difference there.
Well, I understand that, and I don't have a problem with that. I guess what I got a problem with is that council is not going to vote on this. So I'm sure some people got a decent raise, and we're not going to vote on this.
It's outlined in the budget draft at the very end of the document. There's a salary and benefit table. Every single division, every single position, every single base salary, what their health insurance benefits are, the total compensation for everyone is outlined by division, by fund for your review. So you can see, I even have a column in there already, not necessarily because of this, what they're making fiscal year 23-24, the current fiscal year, what they're set to make in this budget draft for 24-25, and what the delta or difference is between those two. So you can see what that change is.
Union employees too? We're talking about all the employees.
Yes, that the compensation study was across all positions, not just non-union.
So I guess what you're saying is we're going to give these people that raise, and then we're going to go to the unions and give them additional raises.
No.
Well, yeah, we are. I mean, we're giving them these, and then we're going in the union with the 2 or 3 or 4 starting this year and whatever. So we're not going to offer any raises this year to the union and part of the contracts.
Comptroller, can you clear? I mean, they're already factored in to this. The union raises are already in the budget that you proposed. As she said, she factored in 2% for everyone unless the union had a higher one. So there were 2 unions that had a higher one. In this budget, it shows that they would get a 3% increase. And then everybody else who was not at their minimum, except for me and the treasurer, and you as alderman, bringing them up to their minimum.
I haven't seen the individual.
It's pages 110 through 133 of the
It's
budget.
been there since the budget draft that you received. It's not changed.
Individual pay things, what you're, I don't know how to get to that.
It's always on the very,
110, 130.
ever since Comptroller Massey has been here, we've always had it on the last several pages of there. That way the public is very aware of what everyone is, not just the lawfully required salaries, but every salary is. It's on the last, if you go to the very back of your budget, Alderman Cooper, they're there. And they've been there.
I just don't understand why there wasn't a city, the council approval on that. And
It is for council approval in the budget.
well, on that, but I'm talking about the individual, this individual pay raises for everybody.
You have the right to change any part of the budget that you wish to.
I'm done.
I have a question. So the percentages that are next to position titles, what are those for?
Not all positions are 100% funded by an individual fund. So, for example, in my office, we have billing and collection specialists. They're completely dedicated to the City of Danville utility bill process, and we bill sewer, solid waste, and public safety pension fee. Their salary is divided 3 ways between the sewer fund, the solid waste fund, and the general fund. So like a billing and collection specialist will be 33 1/3% in each of those funds. So that's just it's a visual indicator for someone to know that their full salary is not coming out of that fund. As opposed to like a laborer in sewer, 100% of their salary is coming from the sewer fund. You can also see that indicated by the FTE column on the far right-hand side, the full-time equivalent. That should match.
So then if I see, for example, okay, accounts receivable administrator says 20%. So the salary on here is the salary 49,199. So 20% of this is coming from this. Then should I see this again someplace else?
Yes, yes. Yeah, so you'll see, it says fiscal year 24-25 salary, and then right next to it, it says departmental burden. It's taking that salary, multiplying it times the FTE and showing, okay, of their salary, this amount comes out. And that same type of equation happens throughout. So IMRF, FICA, health insurance, workers' comp, life insurance, that's all multiplied by the full-time equivalent for that fund or division.
Okay. And I think, and this is not a comment for you, I think to Alderman Cooper's point, usually when we do compensation changes, at least that I can recall in the 2 years that I've been here, we approve them separately from the budget overall. And, you know, I think the expectation would be that, okay, you know, you have your normal annual increases with the overall budget because we've already looked at compensation and we have approved those prior to them going into the budget. And I think that what, I'm hoping I'm speaking correctly for you, that what gives us pause is that all of these changes from this study, which we just now got, were already in the budget prior to us actually getting the results of the study and having the opportunity to ask questions about the study, which, if we have concerns, puts the entire budget in question, because it's not a separate conversation because it's all been lumped together. So that's just my commentary for whoever wants to hear it.
I know you said it wasn't for me, but do you mind if I chime in just to that?
Absolutely, you can chime in.
So I guess since I've been here, the compensation or the wage chart, which is what our current ordinance says, yes, it is adopted separately from the budget. We've either done that the same night or later than when the budget was adopted. It actually, since I've been here, has not been prior, because the budget a lot of times indicates what we can do, right? Like our goal may not be achievable, or maybe it is, and we need to find that out through the budget process before we make any kind of action on the wages. So the reason that this one has been done this way is we needed to know, could we afford this first action, right? Getting those that are not at their minimum to minimum. We have a balanced budget in front of you now. Now the conversation is, do you want to do that? We now have a budget at least to that. If you don't, I guess, want to go to that, that's fine. You can make that decision, but we have a budget in front of you that does do that. So also, our wage chart ordinance is extremely administratively burdensome on my office. I'm just going to be honest about that. Anytime anyone in a non-union position changes, which thankfully recently hasn't been that often, but for a while there, it was almost every month, I have to bring you a brand new wage chart ordinance. I have to bring you a brand new chart. I have to put it on committee. We have to adopt it. It takes so much of my office's time, and quite frankly my time, because I do the resolutions for my division, that it's not administratively expedient. And so I'm working on, with this compensation administration guide, presenting you with a different solution that gives you just as much oversight, just as much review, but is a lot less burdensome. And so that is another thing to come, just so you know. But I hope that helps answer your question. But
I think it helps to be able to see what is and isn't feasible and affordable. Absolutely, it does help with that part of the conversation. But I think it's a lot to chew on, right, to have all of these, have an additional $600,000, or is it six? It is six, right? Yes. $602,000 worth of compensation changes that have been lumped in, and either we have to approve it or you have to redo everything. So it might be easier on one hand, but if we decide, no, we don't want this, then you're going to have to go back and do it.
Yeah, well, that's the budget process. So, I mean, this is a one-time if we can fix, in my opinion, fix the wage chart ordinance problem, I'm happy to do the upfront work on this. Like, just get us where you're happy, and then it won't be, it's a one-time thing. It's not the recurring issue, so. Yep. Any other comments on the budget before we move on to the levy?
Well, I don't know if this would actually be a question on the budget, but I was with the understanding that we would vote on these wage increases in the wage chart before we actually put it in the budget. I mean, that was my understanding. I don't know about anybody else.
We always, I mean, it's been our past practice, except for once, that we always bring the wage chart and the budget together. I mean, that's how we've done it. I mean, even when, under the previous administration, that's how it was usually done.
Even with the wage study?
Yep.
Okay.
We've with the wage charts, I mean, we've updated those as we've hired new positions and things like that, or we've changed salaries. We've updated those and we voted on those other times outside of the budget process, absolutely. But in terms of the annual chart, we normally, I think maybe once, we haven't done it that way. We've always brought it together with the budget because you really can't have one without the other.
Well, and I guess it wasn't the wage chart, it was the study that I guess that's what I'm talking about, the study. I thought that would be brought back to us.
We don't have to approve the study. I mean, that's just their recommendation to us. We do have to approve whether or not we want to implement the strategy recommended to get everyone to the minimum. That's.
But by doing that, we are basically then approving the study.
Yeah.
Because the way that we got people to the minimum as a result of the study, right?
I mean, I don't really know that their study is what it is. I don't know.
Plans were to bring people up to the above minimum, then compensate for additional service years.
I'd love to see the data, the full data, not just the summary. From this, but for us, I mean, usually like when we get the wage chart, we have a table of all of the wages, and we can. This is implementing what was in the study, but it's not showing us the result of the study in the budget. So we don't see.
It is showing you the result of the study in the budget on every single employee.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the comparable data. That's not on here. I want to be able to see comparable data. That's one of the thoughts that I had.
I'm sure that Ms. Tamala can provide that.
Okay. So yeah, you have the results as it relates to our wages, but not the results as it relates to what was actually came back from the study.
What came back from the study was they created a midpoint based on what came back in the study, and that's what we have.
Okay.
Any other budget questions before we move on? Comptroller levy.
There's no changes to the levy since the last draft that was provided to you on November 21st. We had received the information that was presented to you by Lauterbach and Amen the morning of November 21st. I went ahead and provided you that. So just wanted to open it up if there's any questions or commentary about the levy request.
Doesn't seem to be any.
Okay. So the first draft of the capital plan is also on your Dropbox. It'll be on the city website for review tomorrow morning. Adobe PDF was not cooperating before our website tech for the office was gone. It's also been distributed to department and division heads for their review, also done in Excel. So yeah, so take a look at it. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. There are going to be, we just received back the Brightly reports, which if you don't remember what Brightly is, it's a software / consulting service that we received. They went around and evaluated every building and piece of property that the city owns and provided a condition report, and they provided information on what kind of repairs and maintenance need to be done. There's requests that are gonna be coming in for those. Those are not yet in there. I don't have them, and there's not enough time to put them in even if I got them today. So you'll be receiving a second draft of the capital plan. There's some funds available in 302 that we plan to use for those repairs. But take a look at what's in there currently and let me know if you have any feedback.
And what what Comptroller's talking about is Brightly did an assessment of all of our facilities throughout the city and telling us, hey, this is the condition of them. These things are critical. These things are not good, but they can wait. These things you need to address, but you've got a little time, and these things are good, but you will need to address them in 8 years. So. All right. Are there any other items of information for the good of the cause? Yes.
Mayor, on a little lighter side, the Holiday Hills Neighborhood Association on December the 16th. I'm dressing up as Santa Claus and Mrs. Pritchard's dressing up as Mrs. Claus. Ashton Greer is sending flyers to all the residents of Holiday Hills. That is basically the neighborhood association area. And we've, naturally, when we got the word out, several people, just like Eve may want her kids to come over or her grandkids, whatever. So it's open to the public, but it's for the children of Holiday Hills Neighborhood Association. And two of the companies here in town, distribution companies, are going to supply us with candy and that type of thing for treats. We're hoping that there'll be enough treats for every child that shows up. And it'll go from 4 to 7 on Saturday, December the 16th. And we have no idea what kind of turnout we'll have. Like I said, there'll be a flyer to every residence, Holiday Hills now, and then on our little neighborhood website. So we anticipate a lot of flow of traffic. I'm on a cul-de-sac street on Skyline Drive. I don't think we're going to have someone directing traffic, but I think we'll have a good turnout. But it's something that Sharon and I have wanted to do for years. Growing up on a farm in southern Illinois, one time a year, Mom and Dad didn't never decorate, but one time a year, we would go into the closest town where the gentleman would dress up as Santa Claus, and he would greet people at the end of the street. And every farmer in the country, every person that lived in that city and community, they lined up. They had a traffic jam, and it was something that I've wanted to do for years. And finally, we just decided to do it. Contacted some people that's supporting us, and just invite anyone and everyone that wants to. We've decorated outside pretty decent, and we've told them anyone that wants to take pictures for Santa Claus or the decorations, it's there open for the public. We anticipate enough treats for everyone, so just put that on your calendar. It's from 4 to 7 on Saturday, and I think it'll be a nice event. The neighborhood associations have been struggling, a lot of them, and my neighborhood association has a lot of older people like myself, and we can't get out and help the elderly like we used to with their yards and different things. So we've had to find another way to contribute and give back to the community. So that's what we'll be doing, and everyone is invited.
Well, that sounds wonderful,
Yeah,
Alderman.
I believe
Thank
it'll
you
be a
guys for
good
doing
event.
that. It's very kind.
And where's that? You saying?
His house.
Pardon?
Location?
Yeah, it's at my home on 1618 Skyline Drive.
Oh,
Here in Danville. It's in Holiday Hills.
2 columns out front.
Any other items of information for the good of the cause? Yes, Mr. Butler.
Yes, I had one that, Mr. Mayor, we're helping the Kings is helping that Danville Community College. If you know of any young person, 18 years old with a high school or GED, so they have an apprentice, a pre-apprentice program out there, and it's free. While you're in the program, so you get your stipend, and They have carpentry as well as plumbing. And then during the program, you will also get a certificate. It's more like a degree. It's a semester. And if you know of anybody, you can call Doug Hunter out at Danville Community College. It's a great program. I mean, a real good program. So if you know of anybody, young men, call Dak or else just give me a call. I have applications already.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. Any other items for the good of the cause? I apologize. We do need to go into closed session for 5 minutes. I would entertain a motion to go into closed session under Section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss specific employees, under Section 2C2 of the Open Meetings Act, to discuss salary schedules and collective bargaining matters, under Section 2C5 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss the purchase of real property, under Section 2C6 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss setting of the price for sale of property. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We will not take any action after the closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Do roll call, Mayor.
Sorry. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Teague,
Yes.
Alderman Williams,
Yes.
York, Cooper,
Yes.
Butler,
No.
Wilson, Wands,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
O'Kane,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Hoare,
Yes.
Streaming, Pickering,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
10 yes.
10 yes, the motion carries. We are adjourned to closed session. Motion to return to open session. I entertain a motion to return to open session.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We'll return to open session. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by Alderman Pickering, seconded by Alderman Butler. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.